And we're live. What is going on, folks? Today we're going to be talking about the Consumer Price Index release. Today is, if I'm not mistaken, Wednesday, July 13th. This morning, CPI numbers were just released, the latest numbers. So CPI is tracking inflation, right? So what's going on in the economy with regards to inflation. So number one, we're going to be talking about latest numbers. Okay, numbers were just released this morning. Then number two, we're going to be looking at historical inflation rates. What has inflation been like in the past? Well, I'll tell you that the normal inflation rate should sit around 2%. So that's indicative of a healthy economy when inflation is just 2% per year. And number three, we're going to be talking about the different categories, right? Now, the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, is the main metric that we use to determine what inflation is and what's going on in regards to inflation in our economy. The Consumer Price Index is built from a bunch of different categories, from housing to we'll see a lot of those different categories. You know, many categories are in there: milk, bread, groceries, cars, all that kind of stuff is wrapped into the Consumer Price Index. So this morning, it's terrible. We'll look at down here. They'd come in at 9.1%. Okay, 9.1%, folks. That is terrible. Remember, I just told you that 2% is normal. Over the course of the year, we'll look here. Over the course of the year, inflation has been quite high. And this is where we're seeing historical numbers, right? So tracing back just from 2012, you see where a lot of the numbers are around that 2% mark, right? 2012, 13, and then we have the pandemic, 2020, so 2%, until around April, where we really felt a lot of the shutters of the economy, a lot of businesses shutting down, slower growth in terms of consumer spending. So there was actually, not much inflation year over year in that month, not much inflation. And then we were printing a lot of money and seeing that inflation is going up and up and up through the Consumer Price Index. So that's how we get inflation when we print money, and there was a lot of economic relief programs. Whether you think that they were a good thing or a bad thing, we're seeing now the effects of all those programs and all of that money created and printed into existence that is turning into inflation now. When you have a glut of money that is used for consumer purposes, when someone gets a $1,200 check in the mail and determines, I'm going to go buy a new pair of AirPods. I haven't had AirPods in a while, or new ones, or next generation, or I want to get the new iPhone. So these are all consumer products that when a glut of money is chasing less and less goods, then we're seeing inflation. And this is where we're seeing a lot of temporary inflation too, with the supply chain crunch. There's just less products meeting the demand of consumers today. So let's go back to notes. Okay, historical inflation we already covered. Latest numbers. Well, let's talk about what analysts thought were gonna happen. So last month, May, we saw 8.6%. Many analysts thought that these numbers would come in about 8.8%. However, those numbers were blown out of the park. So, inflation being at 9%, just think about that. Just think, wow, this is crazy. And this isn't, and so there are two. There's year over year, right, which is here, and there's month over month. So the month over month Consumer Price Index is at 1.3%. So let me pull out the let's do some math, okay? 1.3, let's annualize it, right, times 12, 15.6%, which is insane. Honestly, if you're looking at where interest rates are going, it's like, are we going to get Paul Volcker is what they say. So Paul Volcker in 1981 just hammered on interest rates, made consumer spending, constricted consumer spending so much that we saw interest rates go up to 18, 19% because there was runaway inflation. Now, not sure if the situation is the same or if we're going to see runaway inflation, but we are seeing in those numbers that they are consistently going higher. I mean, this shows us that we're not even at the peak, that maybe in July, when July's numbers come out next month, that maybe inflation will even be higher. Or if inflation is lower, it kind of means that, hey, maybe we've seen the peak and maybe inflation is coming under control, right? Okay, third on our list, let's look at different categories of spending here. So here we have the summary. We're looking at all items here. So if we look at this number, 9.1, all items. Food is up 10.4%. Food away from home, 12.2%. Energy, 41.6%. So a lot of what's going on with CPI increase, specifically in the past few months, has been energy costs. Many factors going into why energy is so expensive. You know, we've all seen at the pump, gas, so expensive. So this has a big pull. Gasoline, energy commodities, 60%. Fuel oil, 98%, which obviously this is probably a temporary metric. So it probably has a huge weight on the CPI data that we're seeing. New vehicles, 11.4%. Apparel, 5.2%. Shelter, 5.6%. And that's a quick summary of some of the data. Okay, medical care services, 4.8%. Let's see, we're pretty much all above, right? There's nothing. What's the lowest number here? 3.2. Okay, medical care commodities, 3.2%. And medical care services, 4.8%. So honestly, folks, there's not a lot of, nothing seems to be deflating. Nothing seems to be really close to that 2% mark. So that's a little bit concerning. Now I'll go here and, well, thanks for watching, and hope that you enjoyed this little analysis of what's going on in the consumer price index this morning. Okay, take care. Bye.